It's going to take a couple of minutes because we're on Zoom, but from the replay, it'll be live from now. So
Amazing.
just so you know, let me. I'll tag you on the post.
Okay, excellent. Oh.
Yeah, we're live. So
Excellent.
I've got you as Leni Wolf
Yeah,
Morrison.
Leni Wolf Morrison. She's someone I used to know.
Is
I
that
went.
you or
I
not?
Yeah, no, that is me. I have to admit I'm terrible with these things, and I forgot my password a few years ago, and so I've never been really successful with technology
Well,
or
a
remembering
lot of people.
passwords.
Yeah, a lot of people. Oh, so you want me to use Leni Morrison or Leni Wolf Morrison?
Well, let's go with Leni Morrison
All
and
right.
see what happens.
All right. Let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find. See if it comes up. No, just Leni Wolf Morrison.
So let's go with Leni Wolf. She's clearly needed to be here tonight.
Wait, does Leni Morrison? You have a black hat on and a black and white picture?
Yeah, that could be. Yep, that's me. Yep.
Okay, so that would be the one. So the other one's no good, right? All right, there we go. I'm just going to turn on my Facebook so I can see comments on that page at least.
Okay, wonderful.
We get about half the people show up on that page.
Okay.
So, all right, we got what? How long are we into this? I can't even see.
A
I'm
whole
still out of my
13
bot.
minutes.
13 minutes. No, no.
13.
Let's see. We got 16 on Facebook. Yeah, there's
Hello.
14 on. Okay, they're coming. YouTube.
Oh, wow, wonderful.
So where are you at? Are you in the UK?
Oh, I'm in Dublin, in Ireland.
Dublin.
Yeah.
I. I.
No, that's Scotland.
Oh, that's
I thought
Scotland.
Scotland
Yeah,
is
that's
sort of like
right.
it's
I've been
completely
watching
different.
too much Outlander.
Braveheart.
Yeah, yeah. Scotland's Braveheart.
But you know
Irish.
what? We're very close. And the Celts, I'm Morrison. I mean, I'm as much a Scot. I've got Scottish DNA. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's all good, Todd. It's all
Oh
good.
no.
But I'm Irish.
Yeah, those islands are all magical. Every one of them.
Yeah, no, it's
Even
pretty.
the UK mainland, England is
I love all places really.
yeah.
Where I actually really love England. I love the whole world. I love traveling. So I'm from
It's
everywhere. If
yeah.
everyone ever asks, I'm from everywhere.
But you live
That's
in
right.
Dublin.
For
It's
the
a pleasure.
moment, yeah, I'm moving very soon. I'm going to move over to Portugal because there's a nice vibe there. So I'm going to start a whole new life
Bom dia.
in the mountains. Bom dia,
Bom
tudo
dia.
bem?
Boa noite. That's the only two things I know. Boa
Yeah, that's
noche
it.
and bom.
That's it for me too. I have to learn the language. I'm
So
trying to get my head around it.
now where are you from? Ireland?
Yeah, I am 100% Irish. Yeah, um,
Wow.
about
Wow.
78% Galactic and 12%.
78% galactic.
Apparently.
Well, from what I understand, everybody's going to become 100% human.
Oh, well, you know what? I think you're absolutely right. It is time to honor the human experience, because
Yeah.
we've been trying to, I suppose, be a zillion other things. So, yeah, that's solid. We are. It
Oh,
is
I
the
don't.
turn.
I'm not saying people should do it. I'm just saying it looks like that's what the universal energy is going to have us do: is
I
be
don't think
100% human or die trying. So, yeah. So it was it was good that you reached out. We have a lot of people that want to come on. There's a very long list right now, but I was able to work it out for a couple of people this week. Um, test test. We're good. Um, so what happened? Oh, your sound went out. Your sound turned off. So go to the bottom left of the screen and there's a microphone button. Click the drop down and then select your microphone. There you go. How's that? Oh no, it's not working. No, no, the bottom left, don't click mute. Click the little arrow and it'll say select a microphone, and then you can select your same as system. Click
so. Are we
same
good?
as, yeah, there you go. You
Can you
good?
hear me?
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk with headphones. I am going to
You
stay
are.
zen.
You're galactic. We can totally understand. You know,
It's all the
galactics are
language
not.
of the.
Galactics are not tech savvy. I don't think people understand. Sometimes I don't think we understand how far ahead of us the technology is from those that we might be contacting or contacting us or whatever. They
Oh
don't
yeah.
operate off of the same type of technology we do. I mean, hell.
No.
So
But
anyone that's got that in their blood isn't gonna. It's like you coming back and trying to use a hammer and nails when you've been used to, sentient robotic apparatuses.
I tell you, I have a hard time. We have a hard time being on Earth, left and right, even those basic things.
So,
No.
how did you end up being like this? Were you always this weird, or did you
I
were
was
you were you
weak
born
from
this
the get
way, or did you have a wake up
born
experience?
wild, born crazy. No, I'd say definitely um, from a very young age
Yeah,
was a I have abiding memories of just lying down on the ground outside and just looking up at the clouds from very little going, I used to wonder where Jesus was, why he wouldn't appear and all that stuff. So that, yeah, definitely. And I used to try and move things with my eyes and I couldn't understand why I couldn't do that. That memory came back lately, which was really cool. Um, just to have and then I think from a very young age, experienced death very soon in my family. I lost two brothers, and I think when you are um, from a very young age, when you're immersed in when you experience death at the age of 3, and then at 33, you two brothers, different stages of life, but you do get a different connection. I think in your family will go through all sorts of things that brings you in a way closer together and further apart at the same time. It's a very strange, but I'd say definitely experiencing death from a very young age has shaped a lot of the way I moved through the world or the worlds, and definitely had a lot of visions from a very young child, had a lot of visitations from a very young child, and I've had some amazing experiences. So I think it's been sort of this, it's been woven through my life. And it's just getting louder and louder now because I'm finally going, yeah, it's time to I guess is the word everybody's using is embodiment, right? It's really
right.
just
Being human.
uh, being human.
It's like it's like bring all your whatever, all your downloads and trend. But
All that,
it's got to be human. You got to be human. Um, so
well, we
you
got to dance, yeah.
so you were having visitations from an early age. Were you
I had lots
aware?
of
Were you aware of who was visiting you? Did they talk to you?
fun.
Were they apparitions or was it in the third eye?
I would say, to be honest, there was a lot of different. I mean, the clearest, like if I was to go with a very clear, tangible experience, first would be the feeling of a presence of Geronimo or this huge, big Native American guy. I used to share a room with. I had three brothers, and I used to share a room with at this stage two, and we had bunk beds. And of course, one of my brothers was very, very well. Two of them were very sick at different stages, but uh, there was always a lot of prayer in that room. My mother was a nun. That's a whole other story. So there was lots of prayer around us. I think as children, so our room would have been full of prayer for my brothers. And I just remember um, there was a situation where I just climbed down off my bunk bed because there was a beautiful presence of a huge, big, for want of a better word, Native American, like a First People presence,
Right.
feathers, pipe, smoke. And I remember him beckoning me forward and going to sit and feeling very comfortable sitting at his feet. And just, I don't know, I would imagine he imparted on me there's going to be some stuff that you're going to deal with coming up, because not long after that, one of my brothers died. So I really feel that was where I had no doubt in my mind this being was very real. After my brother died, Mother Mary appeared at the end of the bed, and she's appeared to me a couple of times. I lived in a community in Brazil, and I've done some work around the world, but there are certain mysteries of light that I've worked with, but the galactic thing was very different and scary as a child, and that felt, to be very honest. Now today it'll be very positive, because I've learned through life's experiences how to be more discerning of who I can let in and whatnot. But as a very little child, I do remember the high-pitched frequency sounds that would come with the galactics, but these were the negative alien interference, if you will, and that used to scare me. I used to feel them. I felt like as if they were tapping at the window, and this real whirring, high-pitched frequency, and this feeling of there's something around me and it's going to get me. And because I was raised, as I said, my mother was a nun, so I was raised with a lot of Catholic fear. So I would pray. I used to pray to Jesus to protect me from them snatching me. So there was various experiences that were not pleasant with the alien, the darker alien stuff. But that stopped at around 13 when you go through a certain cycle as you become a young woman. So that actually stopped with that, which was quite interesting, the darker interference, for a couple of years. But I learned many, many ways to protect myself. I've had many, I've had many psychic attacks. But I've also had like beautiful experiences. But I'd have to say, sometimes I believe the more light you carry, or maybe the information that you're trying to impart, the more open you are, I suppose, to being attacked. So I've dealt with some really vicious spirits that don't like me, sometimes if I'm in a certain part of the world where they don't want me to be, or if I'm there to ruffle feathers, to spread light, they don't like me. So I've had many, many, many experiences, for sure, Todd, with all manner of elements, angels, beings, guides, but really it's all I suppose we want to help people, don't we? I mean, I don't want it to be like, oh, my story. It's like, if it helps someone out there, we can share the fact that there is all manner of first contact going on.
Well, I mean, it's in the sharing that's where the code is. Right. The experience itself is the teacher. So I can't learn anything unless I experience it. So the closest thing I can get to it is to listen to your experience, right? I mean, these star family, the extraterrestrials, the ones that came before 13, or the ones that were not so friendly, or the ones that were before 13, were they manifesting? Were they apparitions that you could see?
I'll be honest with you, up until 13, they were very much lights and sounds. And then I had to go through some serious, I suppose, personal traumas in my late teens and then into my mid-20s. And I kind of shut the door on everything until I opened it again. And so I went out, just to maybe bring this into a more positive light, because I have extremely positive, beautiful experiences with the Christic Galactics. So I did end up in a community in South America where I suppose the closest, if you will, experience was where a blue beam, and I was pregnant with my daughter at the time, she's now 16, but a blue beam came into the room, and it was really terrifying because the room lit up and it went straight for my pregnant belly. And I'll be honest with you, I was terrified because the feeling was we were going to be taken. She was going to be taken. So again, I thankfully, I suppose my my sense of discernment came in, that this was again, I need prayer, I need protection. So I managed to let it go. I managed to work through it. And in the morning, I came out a couple of hours later, and there was there was so many members of the community that I was living in out, and there had been overnight. There'd been so many sightings, and literally they were all around where I was staying. So there was so much activity. I mean, South America, I lived in, and down in Mexico, I've experienced, there's a lot of experience down there with light as well, and different beings. So, but moving forward a little bit in 2017, when I had another, let's go into the more beautiful divine experience, was where they all appeared and they told me they love me and that I'm to not worry. And I felt a different sense because my heart opened with these particular beings. And I think if I can maybe impart anything, it's if your heart opens when the contact comes, and if you get a sense of, even though it's a little bit terrifying, let's be honest, your room is full of mad bright lights, your body's suddenly fireworks stations, bang, 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 everything's, But if you feel, if you can open your heart and say, inwardly, I am God, I am sovereign, I am free. If there's anything that's not of the light, my firm belief is that it cannot stay in that field of consciousness. So I've learned to do that. And now I'm accessing, since that experience, particularly working in a very beautiful way, because they've done stuff on my DNA. So that's kind of where I saw how my DNA was being crystallized and diamondized through the experience. And then not long after that was very interesting, because spirit works in the most amazing ways. But I ended up going to Glastonbury, and I literally woke up after that experience. I've written about it, but I literally had this, you've got to go to Glastonbury now, So I found myself on Easter Sunday in Glastonbury 2017. And then I had that very powerful experience once again of you've got to work with codes. You've got to work with what I call emerald codes. You've got to awaken these emerald codes. So I've been on that, mission. It's just bringing light. It's just information, Todd. It's just light.
Yeah.
It's how people maybe want to access a bit more of their cosmic Christ heart energies, which is, I believe, why we're all here, is to open this light, this Christed light. And it's not, it's like a mission that we're all here to, at some point, I suppose, just share that love. Mine just happens to be through codes and through the Galactics, through whoever wants to pop in. I don't discriminate, as long as it's love and light.
I haven't had too many experiences with, I have had a lot of experiences with what most people would consider not of the light, but I don't see them as not of the light. And I've brought many of them, probably almost all of them, into my heart, certainly from a point where I understood I was all things. But I'm curious just to back up a little bit, just so people can understand, because through your life experience, there's code in there. Just as there is with these coding that you've been given and shown, I'm a big believer that whatever we receive or experience is meant for us. And
right.
If it's shareable, it's shareable, and that's great. But this series of encounters that you had when you were younger, and I think you've alluded even beyond it at times, if you went to a place that they didn't want you, so to speak, you might get a visit from something that's not so nice. Now,
right.
What I'm getting at is I think there are people, obviously, that don't have the full spectrum of your type of experience. And they're coming into it, or they're remembering they did when they were young, or their kids having it, or their friends having it. So obviously there's a lot of different streams out there. But in terms, in terms of your experiences with these that you were not in alignment with when you were younger, and any time that it happened later, did you ever get any sense of what that was all about? Did you get any sense that it was some type of ancestral lineage that you carried in, either with or without your siblings, mother, father? Did you ever get any information later on, looking back, about what that was about? Did it have any connection to your own personal growth?
That's pretty sweet, solid question, because actually I think you've just put a little piece of the puzzle into my picture that is really interesting. So ancestrally, oh, this is interesting. I think I'm making a few links here in real time, which is cool.
Yeah.
So I had a recurring dream as a child that there was a woman stuck behind sheets of glass, scratching and trying to get to me, right?
Wow.
Of course, I just put it down to mad freaking dreams. Like, I just thought, oh, whatever. And then when I was 16, I went into the attic in the family home, my grandparents' family home. And I stumbled across some newspaper clippings. And I said, geez, that's a mad story. And then I realized they're my people this story is about.
Wow.
I still had a lot of questions because nobody had ever mentioned it in the family. So I ran down to my grandmother, and we were very close. We were very close. And I said, who's this story about? She said, oh, well, you're not really meant to know this. And so, of course, she proceeded to tell me. She said, but this is about your ancestors, your great grandmother. The story that I was reading was about finding out that my great grandfather had he'd been found. He'd put pockets in his stones and was found washed up in the local harbour. And of course, I was very distraught. This is my great grandfather I'm reading about. And then I found out. I asked, obviously, why would he have done such a thing? So my great grandmother, gosh, this would have been 1936, 1937. She got tuberculosis, and there was no cure at the time. So she was sent off to Switzerland. Her doctor had said. So she went out to sort of similar to the Magic Mountains out in Switzerland on account of the fresh air. That was the whole thing. She didn't travel with my great grandfather. Then the war broke out, and then she disappeared. There's no record of her in the sanatorium, right?
Wow.
And my great grandfather then, when things cleared up with the war, he was able to travel to try and find her body, and her body was never found. Ooh, I'm getting shivers telling the story. So she completely has left this hole, if you will, in the quantum tapestry of our ancestral lineage. And my belief, and I'll go into this, if there's a distortion of that type in the family, it bears out somewhere down the line. Do you know what I mean? 7 generations behind and 7 generations ahead. If we do a healing, that's how it's affected.
Right.
Anyway, to step into the next part of this, I was then started to connect dots in my head. Is the woman that's coming to me in my dreams my grandmother, my great grandmother?
Wow.
Because obviously Switzerland, ice, you think mountains, and I had this obviously romantic notion then, because she was a poet, she would write poetry. I have all her books. I'm very linked to her, right? I read all of her stuff all my life. I was always reading her Coleridge, her Byron, her Shelley. I was so involved in her. And if you think when you read a book, right, and someone else has read that book, their energy connects with your energy, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, whatever about that, I had a connection with her, and I went to meet my brother, and I said to him again, this is fast forward about a few years, and I said, I cannot get her name was Bertha, right? I cannot get Bertha out of my head. And he said to me, look, why don't you go into the local church and go, because we've got this big mad Catholic background, go and pray for her soul. So I went into this little church, pulled in off the road, ran into this little church, and I lit a candle for her. And the ground nearly opened below me when I lit the candle, and the initials BVM were suddenly appearing. And her name was Bertha Veronica Morrison.
Wow.
And you've got Blessed Virgin Mary, which is actually what that stands for. But what are the odds that my great-grandmother's name, when I light this candle, which is very rare, this was a very rare, you don't often see BVM behind a candle in a church in Ireland. So it was super like I was meant to be there. I go home and I put her name. What I learned when I lived in Brazil was, if you want to honor your ancestors, you light a candle, you put their photograph underneath the candle, and you put a blessing for their soul to cross and leave the pain, so that they're not stuck in the Akashic records carrying trauma. So I had her name under a candle and I prayed. I had the fire lighting. It was winter. My daughter came in with my partner at the time, and I had just spent hours praying for Bertha's soul, even though I knew in the church she was letting me know, I know you're going to set my soul free and clear the generational, because I'll weave in this another part later. But when my daughter came in, a beautiful butterfly came through the door, out of just through the ethers, through the door and onto my lips. And it was a beautiful admiral. And it stayed in the house in the winter for the next few months. It just popped around. But I knew Bertha is gone to the light. Her soul is free. I've since prayed, obviously, for the soul of my great-grandfather. I honoured them with I'm a musician. I wrote a song about them, and I feel that song also literally came through the ethers. I was playing with my partner, and we just had the guitar and the song. The whole thing was written in like 5 minutes, and it was like channeled. And I believe that was her way of... I've no doubt in my mind that that was her way of saying thank you. But she definitely... So ancestrally... I think that I believe everybody in a family, there are certain people, I call them the bonfire keepers. And you're the ones who come in with all the secrets, the ancient mysteries, and it's bound into your DNA. And your job is to release the pain of it so that future generations don't have to carry the burden of the past. Yeah. And that can be borne out in, for example, in my particular family, I lost half my family through an illness. And my own belief is that was because of the sadness in the miasm of what was in the tree. So I really feel a lot of what we have to do when we get these visits, when we get these dreams, when we get these... whatever way spirit is trying to connect with us, we really have to, our own coding has to, the light within us has to decode things to release the memory from the future generations. So I believe we all have a big, shall we say, task on earth right now, because we're clearing a bazillion individual matrices in real time now, which are releasing ancestral stuff, the stories. So it's an unbelievably powerful time. So we've got to call on all that is love and light to help us. So my vibe is, let's work with the codes, let's work with nature, let's work with our hearts, whatever we can to release sadness from, because we are the land, we are the stars. It's all one world soul. And if I heal me today, or if I heal all the traumas that I've dealt with in my life, then I heal the collective who've gone through the same traumas.
Absolutely.
We all are interconnected. So
Absolutely.
It's really important, isn't it, that we...
Yeah, I mean, it's the connectivity, it's there. Yeah, I like what you said about, and you hear a lot about, of course, we have all these labels, which mean less as the days go by because they're just another identity. But you do hear a lot about star seeds. One of their attributes is you might call it the black sheep, that
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
into chosen families to transmute and transform the ancestral lineage and
right.
patterns, behaviors, traumas, and all that. But yeah, I think that's important. And I also think it's important when things like that happen and you start connecting dots in real time, because so
Yeah,
much of our experience now is being funneled to being present by force or by flow. So it's interesting that that occurred to you, but it sounds like there's no question. You get a butterfly come in, and that type of thing, and butterflies, as in my experience, and things that I picked up from other people, but in my personal experience, butterflies and birds have often carried messages from different transitioned, family members or friends, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for that. The other thing that's really interesting, I know the Catholic Church takes a lot of hits and they deserve it.
right.
I mean, when you get right down to it. But, any organization, any entity that has a local presence is really as good as the local presence, even if the top of the food chain, such as the Vatican or the Pope, is whatever they might be, corrupt, whatever, child molesters, whatever. That's not the topic. What I'm getting at is, I'm a history buff, and I read a lot of metaphysical, religious books, over about a 25-year period, all self-read. But one of the really interesting pieces of history is the story of St. Patrick. And there was a great book written many years ago called How the Irish Saved Civilization, I think by Thomas Cahill. Very popular book back in the 80s. And it's the story of how the line of the, how the, I don't want to say sacred text, but how the, for lack of a better word, the purity of that good part of the movement was kept intact by St. Patrick and his story and so on. He went to Ireland, he was a slave, and then he came back, and so there's a great story to it. But my point is, I grew up in South Texas, and in South Texas, it's about 70% Mexican American. So it's also very much dominated by the Roman Catholic Church. So as a kid, for like the first 9 years of my life, went to the Catholic Church, and they used to actually, that's when they were still doing the, whatever you call it, the sermons or the masses in Latin. And obviously there was a lot of Mexican priests, but there was also a lot of Irish priests and other places I went. There's really a lot to be said for the vortex that Ireland is. You mentioned prayer. You mentioned the influence. You alluded to the influence of the Catholic Church within your life. I find it very interesting, the dynamics of that. You've obviously are connected to other aspects of your multidimensionality and soul family and so on, and you obviously have made it a lifestyle, traveling around, studying, learning. And I'm just wondering, because there is no wrong answer and there's no right answer. I'm wondering, because of the PowerPoint that Ireland is, and because of even the power of your story, which really involves more than you, but your whole family, your grandmother, your great grandmother, and so on. How much of that early upbringing, how much of the Irish Catholic influence did you carry with you, that you were able to bring with you, that still serve you maybe?
Well, I think it's really funny an ancestors just step forward here. I'm just watching what feels like my great grandmother coming here. I feel like that having a faith has been a really, having faith in something bigger uh, stands to any soul on this planet, because so I don't uh, if anyone has something that gives them a reason to feel love and share love, whatever is behind that. I mean, I don't particularly connect to any religion as such, but it definitely, as a child, it definitely gave me fear, to be
Yeah.
honest. To be very honest, I think that having, you see, because my brothers were raised a different religion. We're from three different religions in the families. There was Quakers, which is really old world. Then
Wow.
there was Church of Ireland, and then there was Catholics. So they said if they had a girl, she'd be Catholic, and the boys would be there'd be Quakers or Church of Ireland. So it was all, we were a
It's a
multiple.
very unique family.
Yeah,
You know,
it's off the
very
charts.
unique.
So we didn't have, like, I would have. They chose, for example, me to be the Catholic, and I think it. I mean, I probably chose it in my contract. I said, okay, right, I'll go down there and I'll be Catholic in that life until. But I don't, it's a funny one. It's weird. I never talk about, I was born into that, but it's not a part, it's not me. It's not who but it definitely gave me a lot of fear, Todd, because,
Yeah.
I had to go to a separate school because I was in a multi-denominational school. There was tons of different religions, like, and there was only 60 kids. It was this really small little school in the late 70s, where nobody other, it wasn't mainstream. And all we did was we sang and we danced. So I had a very, for want of a better word, very cool childhood. But then
Hmm.
I had to make my Holy Communion. So
Hmm.
I had to go off with a very strict nun into a chapel for hours every week. And it put the fear of God in me, because she'd bring me to all these. I remember there'd be a statue in the church, and it was, forgive me now, but it was some um, Italian boy who did something bold. And there was an axe through his head. And I'm like, all I can remember, it put the fear of, I was just like, if I'm bold, if I'm bold. And I used to go to bed every night and just look under my bed to see, was that statue with the axe, like, so the Catholic thing terrified me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a positive thing
No, I
at
think
all.
that's a big part of their dogma is the fear, and the shame. I mean, I know in
But
the
shame.
community, yeah, the community I grew up in, it's everything is shame. Everything is what will people think, and very
Oh,
archaic, very archaic. But nevertheless, Ireland is a very powerful place. Obviously, all of those islands in the UK are. But
yeah.
Ireland, you got the Druids. There's just so much.
Do it, the
What
dance.
about? Because I have talked to people from that area, and it seems like another thing that they carry, and you haven't mentioned it yet. And I'm just curious if you've had any interactions or experiences, and that would be the elementals, like the
Oh yeah,
fays,
fairy
the
folk.
elves.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just mentioning the two of the Danann. So, yeah, I've had many experiences meeting it appears to me like this giant emerald green ball. I have a video of it actually. I managed to actually capture it once. I'll send it to you after the show if you want to see it. It's
Is it
amazing.
on Facebook?
It's actually on. I think it's on my YouTube channel. So I'll put a link to that, or else I'll figure it out. But it I don't even know if it's up anymore. I might have taken it down. But I'll share that link again. Um,
What's your YouTube channel?
it should be Leni Morrison. So I don't know. Hopefully it's there. It was like 2016 or 17.
Well,
I haven't looked at it in a while.
you were actually able to
Yeah,
catch.
I'm
Wow.
actually in the garden and having this experience watching this fairy, and it's the Tua de Danann. So the Tua de Danann, for me, I've such love and respect for the land. So the fairies, I'm very, very good friends with the fairies.
Okay.
Um, I am a fairy. No, but I was down in the west of Ireland not long ago doing a tour to see this. There's an amazing story. I'm going to write about it, I think, because it's very, very little known, about a woman called Scotia, And she landed from Egypt. Now it's very difficult to piece it all together because it's ancient history, but she was basically had to escape from Egypt and brought 20,000 footmen, soldiers, warriors, if you will, um, in the 14th, maybe late 13th, 14th century to Ireland, right?
That's
And they
right.
went down to this very sacred part of Ireland where the fairy folk were, the Tuatha De Danann. So if you go down there, because I'm really interested in the stones and then their connection with the stars and the land. So I do a lot of meditations and I do a lot of work with the land, healing the land. Anyway, so I ended up going down to what's called Scotia's grave. She's named after Scotland, by the way, or Scotland rather is named after Scotia. So if check her out. She's just. But if you look at the DNA of Irish people, guess what?
I know.
80% carry Egyptian,
I know. I'm a
right?
big fan. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Robert Sepper at
Right. Yes.
Atlantean Gardens, and he has a video that covers this. It talks about this Egyptian princess who basically, in part, seeded Ireland,
Exactly. And
and
see,
that she actually had. And a lot of his research too talks about the misconception of what the physical characteristics of the ethnicity of Egyptians and other African and even Northern African and Mediterraneans. So it's a really, I think if we look at we have misconceptions about or what we've been misinformed about in terms of our blood genetic DNA lineage on the earth, we would be mind blown. And I know a lot of people that have had like DNA testing from Ancestral, whatever it's called,
yeah,
those places
I,
that do that, and they're
I,
shocked at the they're
I,
shocked at the DNA that they have within their within their body.
I
But
know.
yeah,
I figured I found out I was 3% Irish, even though at the beginning of the show I jokingly said I'm 100% Irish. From the DNA test, my aunt, my great aunt got me to do it because she discovered weirdly, because like, how did this happen? She had Ashkenazi Jew in her lineage. And she was like, wow. And she, like, we're super close. She's like 88. But she said, Leni, will you go and get it done? I'll pay for you. And so she did this, she paid for it. I was kind of like, yeah. Oh, 3% Irish and the rest British and French.
wow.
Wild. Anyway, more French than anything in Scandinavian. But anyway, yeah. So it is kind of interesting. But then I had an amazing talk with I don't know if you've heard of Cryon and Yukiya Sandara, and they were telling me more about as we said at the very beginning of the session, that there's more galactic DNA. So that I can resonate with because I'm like I resonate more with that because
Right.
I just do whatever. It just in my heart I can validate that. That feels yeah. I love those guys. I love hanging
So
out with those guys.
so let me ask you this because again, I'm just on a fact finding mission always.
Oh,
And
sweetheart.
you mentioned sovereignty early in the show, and I'm a big believer that we are all unique and equal aspects, souls, fractals, whatever you want to call it, and it doesn't matter what dimension and it doesn't matter what timeline. Um, but you talked about you have a pretty good contrast because you've got these experiences that seemingly were not friendly,
Yeah.
or that whatever you want to call it, imbalanced or not in alignment. Then you have other experiences that were obviously of a benevolent and more of an alignment.
Mm.
Um, in in either case, uh, is there a difference? And I guess what I'm getting at is, do you question these things? Do you sense any kind of specificity in their interest or agendas, whether they're less comfortable or more comfortable? Does that make sense?
Um, I think so.
I mean,
Um,
do you ever say like, why do you want me to do that? Or
you mean?
Like,
what,
like for instance, I saw something the other day, and it kind of touched on this, and it said something like, because everybody's got their own theories, everybody's got their own experience, and I respect everybody's reality, but I question everything. And except for the one voice that I've had since I was born, which I guess that would be me anyway. But they said in this commentary I saw, they were talking about, you know when something is in alignment with you because it will never judge you. It'll never like use that carrot on the stick kind of thing that the religious institutions do. Like, do this now so you can be in heaven later kind of thing. I'm not saying that's the exact story. I'm just saying that kind of pattern, that kind of inducement. What's your experience with the two different types of energies? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious. Do you have a dialogue with them? Is it mostly you're receiving messages and guidance?
Well, I guess the best way to answer this is with real kind of like a pure response to how in those moments I deal with it. So what's coming to me now is if I was to take, for example, the latest attack, if you will,
Right.
and it's like the latest biggest attack would have been, I was doing a meditation with a circle.
Okay.
And with a circle of like maybe 10 of us here in this house. And I generally know everybody's coming into the house and we all hang out and there's a vibe and we know each other. But this one particular night, someone came in that I didn't know, and that's cool because she was a friend of a friend, so I didn't know her personally.
Right.
And as I was literally letting her into the house, my guide said, "Watch out."
Oh.
And it was so loud, Todd. I was like, okay, this is odd because I can't just go out of the house. My guide just said, because like literally we're about to have sacred circle. That's so uncool. Not going to do that. Okay, I'll just, and we're sitting there and literally within, I guess like 10 minutes into the meditation, the entity that was attached to this person literally got up and started to kind of pretty much choke me, and it was pretty insane. Thankfully there was another medium. I had another medium in the circle. I am a medium, and she helped me release this. We opened the back door here, and we literally wrestled with this spirit
Wow.
for like 10 minutes. I was more worried because I've dealt with this kind of thing, but generally on my own. I don't usually get a psychic attack with an audience, so it was pretty wild.
Wow.
Usually I get a psychic attack and I'm in my bed and you're in the other worlds, so open season, right? Unless you've set up kids. So we wrestled, and this spirit was, I'm not joking you, this spirit was as ancient as it comes. This spirit was hanging around for aeons of time. And I had a contract, because that's what happens. I have contracts with certain malevolent spirits. I know I do. I've known that since a child. And she knew on a soul level that she had to come to me to have this released. So we released it, right?
Right.
And we sent it, the gang could see it. It literally, I commanded, I am God, I am sovereign, I am free, until it released itself and gone, right? Just gone. Boom, bang, like literally the air smacked. Went in, calmed the girls down, made sure that this particular soul who had that release, she had been sick all of her life. Now she had, I won't, divulge that particular story, but she had a particular contract with that spirit, and I was also involved in that contract. I was to release it, she was to come in, and this was the deal. So we managed to finish out the meditation, And I don't know how I got the energy to do it, because I mean, I have wrestled 3 like that in my life, where it has literally, I'm not joking, you pinned me to the wall. One was in Brazil, one was in Mexico, and this one here in Dublin. And I really believe, when now I've been told, because my higher guidance is saying, okay, you know, you have certain contracts with certain spirits and you have to clear them. That's cool. I'm down with that now, and I know all the ways. I'm like a ninja kung fu warrior, man. They're not coming in, and if they do, and I'm not saying they won't again, I at least know that my God consciousness can be accessed, because my Christos mission is so freaking strong, and there's nothing stronger than love, as far as I'm concerned. This is the vibe that I'm
Right.
just going to send, right?
Right.
So after that experience, I was flattened for a week. I couldn't even lift my phone, and I asked God. I said, look, I had a really sore throat. I was just wiped out, because it literally took everything that my spiritual self could do to combat this evil. But that was something that, it was like a gargoyle. Do you know what I mean? And I've seen gargoyles. I've seen them flash through people very fast, especially on certain ley lines. So I see the reptilians. They don't like me. They don't like me. Because that's why I can be attacked a lot. The reptiles hate me. The gargoyles hate me. The serpents. So if I walk into a land where that energetic is held, they generally get angry with me. So that's why I can have to deal. So I asked God anyway. I said, God, can you soften this experience, so that at least when I have released these to the next realm and let them go with love to wherever they need to go, back to their creator with love. My prayer is very strong about that. But that at least my vessel can return to, because I'm a mother, I work, I have to be in the world, right? We all have to do our everyday stuff. So I asked, after that experience, for example, please, can I have my energy restored ASAP, so that I can get on and do my work and be a mom and be all the things I need to be. And that's what's happened. I've had 2 other minor attacks since, and I've been able to deal with it. Then you've got, on the flip side, the most amazing experience with the angelic realms, with the Christic Galactics, where you are just held, and you know you can drop into the space, and it's just pure love. And that is where I've had that experience with an audience too, where it generally, feeling the energies, it'll generally happen when I'm, for example, if I'm guiding a meditation, or if I'm at a seminar or a conference with a high vibe team, and they bring in, and then when I was in Sedona there recently, I accessed speaking in tongues, because the Christ light was ignited through an experience that we had in the audience. And I don't know what this vessel is capable of, but I loved it. I felt so pure love. So, I mean, we just don't know. We only use like 3% of our brain. We're mostly in the linear field. We need to access the quantum conscious field and get all these other parts of our reptilian brain to quieten down, or our super conscious brain to come online. So when all this starts happening, and I believe it is happening, it is such an exciting time. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know how great or brilliant, this human body we're in is. We've no idea. And I've always just observed these things happening to me. My Kundalini awoke in a group, and that was again a very beautiful experience, where there was a crackle of my spine. Am I talking too much?
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
When I returned, I think I was like 24 when I returned from a couple of years in Brazil, and I had a huge meditation down in the country, down in my family home, the Ancestral home, where I found the newspaper clippings. Anyway, I was on the land there and was doing a huge healing. I had people from Brazil, Egypt, San Francisco, from all over. I had a big, huge group, and my mother. And so we're like some of the people had just been doing these amazing tours in the pyramids. You know, they were back from Giza and they were back from you know, the Sphinx. They brought all these beautiful crystals and magical stones and all sorts of stuff, you know. So that was in the circle, and it definitely electrified the energy in that night. So I started the meditation, and this is me sharing beautiful experiences so that we don't end on a bad note, because I don't want to scare anybody. So
I haven't thought any of this was bad. It's all interesting. It's all relevant.
Yeah. It's all relevant. But I heard it was so funny, Todd, because I'm sitting there and I'm doing my usual thing. I host meditations. I'm just doing my usual thing. But this time, this huge crack in my spine, like, okay. And I felt this, for want of a better word, this is like 20 years ago now, Jesus. But anyway, this, for want of a better word, a seed with a tail. And obviously now, you know, we have the language that was my Kundalini. But that's what it felt like. And it kind of went, and it stopped right at my solar plexus. So it kind of, the serpents that were asleep, if you will, just shot up. And I think it was because we had like these Egyptian things in the room. And of course, I've since found out I have super connection to Isis and whatnot. So, you know, and anyway, this huge burst of, for want of a better word, what felt like an orgasm, full body, through my entire body, head to toe, blissed out. And I started making some weird light language, but people didn't have the talk about light language back then. We're now talking about it. And I was all sorts of things going around to everybody, removing implants, imprints, overlays, in this state of pure bliss. And my mother said, "Oh, I think I'll make some tea. Who'd like tea?" Because she was so freaked out, because it was so, you know, come on, who wants to see their daughter completely like channeling and doing all this stuff? So the spell broke, if you will, and we all had tea. But I'll never forget, that was the first Kundalini awakening. So it got as far as the solar plexus. Mm-hmm. Then in Mexico, it opened in my heart, and then it opened in my crown chakra. So the Kundalini, I've gone through 3 very interesting stages of my, in real time with people. It's never been on my own. It's always been in a unity consciousness experience. Right. And it's been absolutely a very exciting journey. I'm trying to meet people who might have had that experience. If anyone is listening that's had that, please reach out to me, because I would love to talk to anybody who's had this, because I don't know many people who have had this, where you get this, I don't know, I just haven't talked to people where the voice...
The specific part of the experience you don't know of many people that have had, what is that?
The where you have that like pure ecstasy, and then what happened was a cobra's head, I forgot this part, while the serpent was waking, because that's what the Kundalini is, you know, energetically. It's like you're gonna then open into your wings, right? It's pretty much everything is, you know, it's the 7 lower heavens and then the upper higher echelon heavens, and it all comes through you, through the divine experience. So you've got to have the earth, the shaman, and you got to have the stars, the wings. So it all kind of weaves together in this beautiful dance in your human body. So while that was taking off, if you like, this massive cobra comes over my head like this, and I would love to know what that meant. That's all. That came in with the Kundalini arising. I mean, I could, right now, like I see you, that's how it happened. Actually, behind you, there's an image there. I don't know what that is, but it was like that. With the, is that a sphinx back there? But it was literally like, but it was like a serpent. It was like
right there?
Cobra. No, it's actually here on the other side of it. It looks like a blue
Yeah.
beam, but it's really
Oh,
simple.
over here.
Oh, it might be on your over there.
Over here.
Yeah, maybe.
Those
I
are
think.
those are I think Arcturian signature codes for my wife and I.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
We
mean,
got a few years ago.
it's all information. All this
Yeah.
light.
I was going to ask you, yeah, because I don't want to run out of time. We got another show. We got 2 more shows, and
Oh, wow.
we got another
I
one
didn't
coming up.
realize the
But I
time.
wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
during the first couple of years of my reawakening, I had this pattern where I would run into mediums. Like mediums would seek me out, or I would meet them by chance. And I would think there was probably 10 or 12 of them for about 3 years. And it
Whoa.
was always very synchronistic. And then of course I started doing this work, and you run into a lot of people that channel. And then there's other forms of psychics, let's just say. What in your mind, like just from your experience and your knowledge, is there a difference between a medium and a channeler? What would they be?
Well, I guess straight off the bat, I think right now, channeling our higher self, channeling uh, our own higher self is very interesting. So I think that would be the difference in
Hmm.
the new sun channeling. I
Hmm.
believe that all of us can access
Yeah.
through the stars, the language of the stars, and then the medium. Um, like it is part of what I used to do in the old world, if you like.
Hmm.
I don't personally, I don't particularly choose now to contact the
Right.
dead.
Right.
I unless I have to find a body, or I have to find, if someone comes to me and says, right, I need to find um, a soul, then
Yeah.
I will use that gift that way. But what I have found is when I have worked as a medium, the dead will come through me, and that
Right.
is very hard on your vessel,
Yeah.
especially if they die of a heroin overdose and you get worn out because you've now you've taken on the energy of that addict while they talked through you, because I'm like a trance channel.
Yeah.
They'll talk through
Yeah.
me, so it can be very
Yeah.
tiring. And
That was my experience. My experience was the mediums I ran into, they were like uh, towers.
yeah,
So they were more susceptible to being able to attract, and so I would come into contact with them because my abilities were not in that that type of thing. But what would happen is if I was in the proximity of one, then they would start approaching me saying,
right,
"Hey,
yeah,
I got a message for you,"
yeah,
and it was almost like a little journey. But I always wondered about that, and you don't see as much of it. I have some friends that are mediums that
yeah,
work rooms, and and this is all good stuff. But you do see, I see less of that now. I see
right,
more of the channeling through the higher self to the other aspects occurring in more and more people, which is probably what light language is. It's in some way too, I would
right,
imagine.
right.
Some part of us is coming through. Uh, as the higher self would say, the hub, and then it comes into the body. Yeah, very
I,
interesting.
I think that old information, we don't need. This earth doesn't, this new sun earth doesn't need any old information anymore. It's saturated.
Yeah,
And I think the lighter we can be, and we know that all spirits are where exactly they need to be in
right.
one aspect, and we have to let everybody be where they need to be with love, and be fully present here on earth and enjoy being here. But I really I asked God as well. I said, if I need to be a medium, I will be it. But my choice would be to help raise the vibration of the planet now. So my calling is more planetary karma healing and
Yeah.
ancestral healing in a way. But of course, that involves, I'm always talking to the ancestors.
Hmm.
But so I think it's maybe a different way. I say I communicate with the ancestors. Someone might call that mediumship. Someone might call that channeling. It's
Yeah,
all. It's what we don't get lost in the definitions. It's
absolutely.
just,
Absolutely.
isn't that it? We just see. Anyway, this has been amazing to.
Well, it's a good first time. We'll maybe collaborate again later in the year and
Yeah.
see what's happening. We didn't even get to talk about what was happening, but yeah, at least we got to know you, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming in and reaching out and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And I wish you and your daughter and all your loved ones all blessings and all the things that you're getting into. Yeah, until the next time. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I'll be in Portugal, and lots of love to Morgan as well. You guys are awesome.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. You take care. We'll be back in 40 minutes.